Welcome. I'm Jacqueline Harany. I'm the secretary of the Senior Lawyers Committee at the New York City Bar Association. And we're very thankful to have Kim Wright here with us today for this incredible event that is about how we can be a lawyer and still be me. So we've been in a world where change used to be optional. We could resist it, avoid it, and soldier on. But today's rapidly changing world has led to a lot of soul searching by lawyers. Lawyers, like others, we're all looking for meaning in our lives, a chance to be self-expressed and proud of our role as lawyers. We find ourselves longing to make a change in our careers or a way to affect change in the world around us, but many of us don't know where to begin or how to take those next steps. So today we're going to have a live coaching session presentation by Kim Wright. And we are very thankful to those of you who filled out the survey. We had some excellent response, a lot of feedback there. And Kim Wright is here with us, the author of Lawyers as Peacemakers and Lawyers as Changemakers. And she has designed her own life and reinvented herself no less than 7 times. She's helped hundreds of lawyers discover their own paths in the world, from finding joy in their current circumstances to changing their lives completely. After a dozen years of being a nomad, building a movement of integrative lawyers across 6 continents, Kim continues to teach and innovate transformations that better serve lawyers, their clients, and the planet. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Kim and just restate everybody to please turn your videos off and please rename yourself with your favorite tree, plant, or flower instead of your own personal name. And if you don't know how to do that, just click on the participants tab at the bottom and hover over your name. And you should see a section that says more, and you can click rename, and then you can type a different name. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to change your name if it's not already changed. And feel free to change it if I didn't put your favorite plant or a particular flower or tree that you like. Okay, thank you, everybody. And I'll turn it over to Kim.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see so many people here. And it's actually really fun to see all the different plants being represented. It's like lily and oak and willow. It actually is very heartwarming. So what we're going to do first, first we're going to talk about what we're going to do. And we're going to review the survey a little bit. We had 21 people actually answer the survey. We're going to look at some of the challenges that people expressed. We're going to talk about what does it mean to be a happy lawyer, and then sort of look at what is that core, like because there are a couple of different studies. We're going to do a little bit of an exercise, and then we're going to look at the challenges in the world, but what's really going on in the world and what is our role at this time in history. So that's a lot to do in an hour and a half, but I think we're going to be able to do that and have lots of room for conversation as well. So I hear people beeping on, change your name to a plant, a tree, or a flower, and turn off your cameras so that everybody can feel really safe. You're anonymous. Nobody knows who you are. You can say things that you might not want to say in public. So thanks for coming. So the first thing in the survey was I was actually a little surprised because I thought we'll get a lot of people here who are not very satisfied with their jobs because of the topic. But we had job satisfaction ranging from 2 to 9. And we had several people who were like at 7.5, 8, and 9. So there's some people who are really happy, but they're still here. So maybe they have something that they can actually share with us about that. We had somebody who was actually considering a law career and someone who was retired, and we had pretty much everything in between. So we had plenty of people who were sort of new in the law or, had practiced 30 or 35 years. Overwhelmingly, the survey results show that you are a group that wants to make a difference. So I wonder if the people who answered the survey are the ones who really want to make a difference, and so they answered the survey, or if this is a good cross section of the group. But these are some of the words. I made a word cloud of some of the things that people said about being caring and compassionate, wanting to help. They care about social justice, sustainability, racial justice, making a difference, telling stories, integrity. There's a lot to be admired from this group. I'm really glad you joined us today. If they weren't working, there were some things that they would do. So there were a lot of people who said they would do pro bono. There were some yoga folks and music folks. We had several bakers. I don't know if that's because the popularity of the baking shows, or if people loved baking so much that that's why they're popular. We had readers and writers and artists and travelers. And of course, the travelers have a special place in my heart, as do the writers, because that's what I do a lot of, or did, and look forward to doing again. So as Jacqueline said, for 12 years, I was a nomad traveling around the world. Now, this pandemic has me grounded in a way that I haven't been in a long time. So there were some challenges. Somebody said that they gave up their soul to pay their student loans. Several people had variations of, I don't fit in. My identity as a lawyer is not congruent with my values. I don't want to write like a lawyer. There were some personal challenges like family illness, some economic challenges, people who said they were afraid of being judged, saying that they're not risk takers. And then we had several instances where people talked about the problems in the world are so huge, they just don't know what to do, that they can't focus on one thing because the world is falling apart around them. And the legal profession is pretty challenging. You know, some of these are things that weren't mentioned, some of them things that were. But in the legal profession, depression is 2 to 3 times higher than the general public. Addiction is the same. The adversarial system is not about finding truth. It's about battle. And a lot of people thought that they were actually going to find truth there. We have issues with systemic racism and sexism. And, there's this whole body of problems that are part of the legal system. I saw a great article about how professionalism is actually part of a remnant of the patriarchy. And so all of that stuff about how we're supposed to be so proper and we're supposed to wear our blue suits and, look exactly alike and all that kind of stuff, that's actually part of the challenges we're facing. That not fitting in is an example of being somebody who is actually stepping away from that system and the dysfunction of the system. So some of the questions made me think of this study that was done. So what makes lawyers happy? And Larry Krieger, who is a professor at Florida State University, and his co-researcher, Ken Sheldon, who is a social science professor somewhere in the Midwest, actually interviewed 6,200 lawyers about their jobs and their health. And they found that it wasn't about making money, which is what law school teaches us. You got to make a lot of money. I'm not against making a lot of money, but that's not the thing that makes you happy. Being a partner, that had no correlation with happiness and well-being. Lawyers who actually did take those public service jobs, which so many of you said you became lawyers to do, made the least money, but they were the happiest. So they also drank less alcohol. They had less depression. There were a lot of the measures of unhappy lawyers that were resolved by actually having a job where they were making a difference. Now, there's an earlier study by Susan Dykoff, a professor and an author. She wrote a book called Lawyer Know Thyself, and then also about comprehensive law practice. And she talks about how the tripartite crisis of deep professionalism, incivility, low public opinion of lawyers, and lawyer distress and satisfaction actually was not found in what she called the comprehensive law movement. That movement held promise for a healthier profession and a happier profession. So there were things like restorative justice, therapeutic jurisprudence, collaborative law, some kind of reconciliative mediation kinds of cooperative humanistic approaches. And that those people were also happier. So it's not just that they made less money, although many of them don't make less money. It was, for me, the key was they were following their values. They were actually aligning what was most important to them, be it innovation, reconciliation, restoration, approaching law as a healing profession, all of those sorts of things, which is in common with the public interest lawyers. And they were being more values focused in the way they did their legal careers. So how do you decide what are your values so that you know whether to align with those? And so I've got just like a few little questions here. If you'll jot down when we finish going through these few little slides, I'm going to have Jacqueline put you into some breakout groups so you can actually talk about these and come back. So the first question is, what do you love? You know, like for those of you who love baking, what is it about baking that you love? There actually is a correlation between lawyers and cooking, not just baking. There are lots and lots of lawyers who are cooks. So what is it? Is it about taking the ingredients and making something else? Is it about the caretaking, the nurturing of the people who are going to eat the food? You know, what do you love? And what is the value that represents? And what breaks your heart? It's like for me, when I see, things with children, children who are, orphaned or, not being loved, it just breaks my heart. It actually led to me taking in a total of 16, or with my birth children, I had 16 children. So I took kids in off of the street because it just broke my heart to see that they didn't have a home or they didn't have somebody who actually just loved them. So for me, that kind of is part of my operating principle that we're all family. And then what do you rant about? I mean, we probably all have those things that we see it on Facebook or, someplace on social media, and somebody will post something and it's just like, I'm just gone. It's like I have a support group with my daughter. There's certain members of our family that post things and I am compelled to answer. And so when I answer, I call her and she's like my sponsor. She says, now you need to go back and delete that. That's not helpful. But there's certain things that I just can't not comment on. So that has to do with my values as well. So we're going to do the exercise. We're going to ask these questions. What do you love? What breaks your heart? What do you rant about? And these are the potential values that might have been triggered by those. Now, these are not all the values. They are sort of a cross section, and there are as many as will fit on a slide. Over time, I had people make lists of things that were missing, and we added them. And you see some of the things like honesty can be truth, credibility, or about ethics. And integrity can be about honesty, veracity, and morality. Integrity can also be about wholeness. So there are all of these words have a meaning that is not just the meaning that's here. So as you look at what do you love, what do you rant about, what breaks your heart, these are some of the words to look at. And so I'm going to let Jacqueline put you in groups of, I don't know how many groups you can give, Jacqueline.
Yeah,
but
we've
if you
got about 43 people here, so
if you do groups of 3 and 4.
Yes, I should be able to do that. Here we go. So I'm going to have 12 breakout rooms. We're going to randomly put you into these groups. And for how long, Kim?
Let's take 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's not very long for, like, because actually knowing your values will change your life. But given that we have an hour and a half, let's take 5 minutes.
What are they taking a moment each to discuss in this group?
We wanted them to discuss what are your values. So about maybe make it 6 minutes, and then we'll have the extra minute. So about 2 minutes each. Just kind of look at, you're going to lose this image when you go into your group. So you might want to take a minute now and jot down some of the words that that call to you. And then talk about, like, why is that? Why do you think that's your value? Like not just, don't just list and say, oh, like I like empathy and family and community. Like, what is it about those? It's like, what is it about baking? What is it about the word compassion that is a value for you?
Okay, so everybody, you should automatically get put into your rooms. If you see something pop up on your screen that says join breakout room, go ahead and join that. When you're leaving the group, you don't have to click anything. You'll be pulled back automatically, okay? All right, thank you.
I get joined in a group, so somebody's got a short group.
I can move some people here.
You can be anonymous. Now, most of the time we're begging you to turn videos on. Is everybody back? Jacqueline?
Let me just double check our breakout rooms. We just had somebody join us. If you could please rename yourself. We're trying to keep this fully anonymous to any flower or plant or tree. And if not, I'm going to go ahead and rename you. I think everybody, let's see, is everybody back? I think so. Almost 37. We've got a couple of people who aren't back yet. Okay, I think they just got in. Yep.
Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. Would some of you share some of the values you named, and I'd like to know whether you think your life is currently aligned with that value.
So go ahead and unmute or use the raise hand feature if you'd like to share, and please keep your videos off. Thank you.
And it's safe because we don't know who you are.
All right, I just unmuted so that I could say we were in a breakout room and we got through some values that were joint, basically. Family, competence, health, courage, love, creativity, loyalty, determination, honesty, and trust were things that we liked or felt were our values. And a lot about family is what do I love? What breaks my heart and rant about are poverty, injustice, and unfairness, which pretty much we were in agreement. We had some interesting backgrounds, three people who had experiences other than law prior to going to law school. So as far as being me, maybe we were the me's before we went into law. So we had a basis of who we were prior to even becoming lawyers in another plane. So I thought that was very interesting, because I'm very much a proponent of no one going straight from college to law school, because basically there's no experience there. And how do you know who you are and who you can be if you have not had the experience prior to becoming a lawyer?
That's a great point. That if you are really grounded in who you are before you go to law school, you're going to be less miserable in law school, and you're going to be clearer when you come out of law school. I went to law school. I was almost 30, and I already had 7 kids, and so I had a pretty good sense of who I was. And I still sometimes struggled with trying to get in trying to be put in a box. Like when it came time to do interviews, I actually was interviewed by a big firm. And in the middle of the interview, I looked at them and I said, this is not going to work. This is not me. Thank you for your time. And I got up and left. They still sent me a rejection letter, but it was clear to me that wasn't who I was. And probably the interview was going well. If I hadn't gotten up and left, I might have gotten a job, which would have been a catastrophe.
Yeah. I went to law school at age 50 after a full career as a scientist, and for various reasons. Basically, bench to bedside was not, lab bench to bedside, patient bedside was a disconnect, and I felt that something had to be done at that interface. And as I consulted for a law firm and said, okay, that's the answer, go to law school. And I did.
How aligned is your current career with your values?
Well, now I'm actually retired, but my career, the last 10 years were very coincidental with my values. I was not a partner or anything like that. I was a contract attorney, what they called short-term attorney. However, I held that job for 10 years, and it was the longest I ever had been in one place, so hardly short-term. And I worked on the plaintiff's side, the class actions and securities fraud that involved science, mostly fraud in clinical trials. So they cause drops in the stock market, which is how it falls into securities. But very few securities firms would touch that because they haven't the knowledge. And with my PhD and my experience, I was able to find where they were lying within clinical trials.
Sounds to me like you had a very successful career based on your values and not the values that might have been imposed upon you.
Yeah, I went my route, which is why I had my mind set as to what I wanted to do in law, and law firms were very uneasy with me because I was a mature woman of a certain age who did not have the advantage of the young women now of equality of rights to education, but I fought every inch of the way. And in that way, I knew myself very well, and how I knew myself and presented myself was not necessarily in the law firm mode. So I am very happy to know people like you and Jacqueline who are unconventional in terms of the traditional law firm organization, and hope that legal education will change, and I will work for it, and to promote more cooperation and cooperative law than the constant battle in litigation. I was in litigation, but I was on the in the investigative side more than I'm not a stand-up in court person. I'll coach a lawyer as to how to question and cross-examine an expert, but I don't really want to do it myself.
Another thing I hear is that I think that you probably were, because you knew yourself, you probably spoke your mind.
Yeah. Lawyers don't like that.
And that's a little disconcerting to the sort of that traditional legal system where they're going to shape you.
Yes.
And probably also led to more satisfaction for you.
Yeah. I can't say that I was dissatisfied. I retired happily. I practiced law for almost 20 years. So yeah, it was quite an adventure. And I have no regrets. Every step of the way, whatever path I took, I made the best of what I could do. I never made a lot of money. So that was never my goal. And a lot of people couldn't understand that. And I was even criticized in one of my law school classes for not wanting more money. So so it was not on my radar at all. And so the whole law school emphasis on this making a lot of money was so foreign to me, especially coming from science where nobody makes any money. You have to be dedicated to do what you do and be satisfied with the lower income that a scientist earn. So yeah, I don't want to take up, maybe somebody else wants to talk.
Yeah, I'll go to someone else, but I hope you haven't scared people who think that living according to your values automatically means you don't make a lot of money. I think it's just the focus is not on the money.
Oh, we did very well. My husband and I are happily retired with quite a substantial income. So yes, it does work.
Who else would like to tell us about your values? Don't be shy. You're just trees and plants, flowers.
Hi. I think your comment about the traditional law firms wanting to shape you is very, very accurate, because I think if you are somebody who goes to law school, probably one of your values at the time when you entered law school was personal achievement and accomplishment. And that can come in many forms, monetary or otherwise. And then you get into law school, you go through law school, and you come out of law school and you still want to have this achievement and accomplishment. And then you arrive at a firm, in my case, a big firm, and your desire to achieve and accomplish is something that they count on to facilitate their shaping you into a certain type of lawyer, ultimately a certain type of person. And over time, I think the weight of that particular value of achievement goes down. You have achieved quite a bit already in your life. And now you come to find out that you have been shaped into somebody who is very different from the rest of your values, which you maybe didn't prioritize as much previously. And I think that's probably what's happened in my own case.
What are the most important values to you now?
Creativity and aesthetics. And none of those things are present in a corporate finance practice.
Oh. And could you imagine a way that you could have some of that?
I tried. When I first started working, I really tried, and I wasn't in corporate finance always when I first started working. I also had a career before law school. I worked in marketing. And I loved creativity and communication, and I had an international component to that. And when I went into law school, I was very determined to keep using those aspects from my previous career. So I headed straight for corporate work, business work, and focused on intellectual property. And for a long time, I told myself, well, there is creativity in being a lawyer. There's problem solving. And, when you're working with IP, you can be working with, more different types of aesthetics, perhaps. But the reality, in particular at a big law firm, for many years, for junior, even all the way up through senior associate, depending on the size of the practice, the reality is that you don't actually get to use very much creativity, and they don't require a lot of big picture thinking. The reality is a lot of what is required to do what you need to do 95% of the time is to cross the T's and dot the I's and be very process oriented and detail oriented. So you can try to, but you can work really hard to try and find things that match up with those other values. But the reality of the work is that it doesn't use those values nearly as much as it should.
Might I give you a few suggestions of things you might try?
Sure, that's why I'm here.
Well, I was hoping so, but I wanted to ask. I don't walk around necessarily giving my opinion to people who don't want it. So, so these are actually real stories. I had a client once who was a corporate counsel and in the most boring company in the world. Her description, 40 some odd offices. I mean, you know, like from that traditional law school perspective, she'd really made it. You know, she was the corporate counsel for, you know, multi country company and all that. It was so boring, and she wanted to leave. But she hired me to coach her, and she was going to vest in the retirement plan, you know, 18 months or something. So she had 18 months to suffer it out while she figured out what she was doing next. So we decided that we were going to experiment. And she feng shuied her office. And you can do that with a desk even, you know, if you just, you know, like whatever your workspace is. And she brought in art, and she brought in a fountain and put it on her desk. And she's an interesting thing happened. Like, you know, she really made it an expression of her and that you know, the aesthetics that she wanted to work on. And people started having meetings in her office, like like instead of going to the conference room, they said, "Do you mind if we meet in your office? It's so nice in there." And then people started in their own offices. They started doing things that were expressive. And then they kind of started seeing her as somebody who had some creativity to bring. And she wanted to experiment with their contracts. This was long ago, but another intellectual property lawyer is actually one of the co-founders of Conscious Contracts. And it was sort of a predecessor of that. She wanted to, like, you know, make the contracts more relational and less dry. And because she'd been doing these creative things in her office, they saw her as a creative person, and they let her start making those changes. And by the time she actually did leave 18 months later, because she had decided she wanted to teach. She'd been teaching part-time, and she got a job offer to be a full-time law professor. But during that 18 months, it actually became a place that she loved to work. And the only thing that changed was that she started actually breaking out of the box that she and they had her in. So I don't know if that's helpful, but it was a way for her to start expressing herself, and they actually welcomed it. And I think that we sometimes think the system isn't going to welcome our individuality, and there are some that won't, and they'll push back. But sometimes everybody else is just wanting the same thing.
Kim, I'm going to flag we have someone with a hand raised, Lily, one of our lily flowers here, but we also have a comment in the chat. So I'll have you take a look at the chat and see which one you want to take first.
Oh, I can't see the chat while I have a screen share.
Oh, I'm happy to read it to you.
Okay.
It says, can you speak to the psychological power and pull of money? what are some tools to get unstuck around leaving the big paycheck of big law, especially for those of us who aren't partnered or don't have any other fallback income source?
And is there another one?
No, the other one is
Okay.
someone who has a hand raised.
You know, money is a relationship, like other relationships, and if you are exclusively in relationship with money, then you're losing a lot of other things. But some people, it is like a compulsion. It's a way they measure themselves. So there are lots of workshops out there, and therapists and all of that who actually specialize in your relationship with money. And there are people, these multi-billionaires, like, what are they going to do with that money? Like, if I had a lot of money, I would give a lot of money. Like, there's a game that you might find online and play. It's called the prosperity game. And it actually, like, on the first day, you get $100, and the next day you get $200, and the next day you get 100 plus 200. So it uses the sequencing of like it keeps growing the amount you get each day. And after 30 days, you've got like $6 million or $136 million to spend. And if you do that every day, you'll start to break up your relationship with money and as a scarcity thing. So it's a long conversation, and it's very individual. But I think that that would be one of the things that I would recommend. That breaking up that relationship with money that has you want more and more and more. And then there's also the piece of like never having enough. And for some people, that's about not literally not having enough. But in this country, and for most of us, it's about being realistic about what we want and what is going to provide us. And it was like, we've got the holidays coming up, and people, will get lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff. And then the next day they'll go shopping. Like, there's not a sense of satisfaction from the stuff. And you're always looking outside of yourself for satisfaction. I actually think that getting really clear about your values, and like, maybe your value is security. Maybe maybe your value is about fullness. It's like if you are clear about what your values are, and then look at money from that lens, I think that's also helpful. I hope that answered it. It's a big issue, and it is very individual, but at least I can touch on it.
Lily, thank you, Kim. Would you like to share some of your thoughts from the exercise?
Hi, yes, thank you. So I have, I feel like kind of like an inverse problem. So I graduated law school, fancy law school, all of that, top of my class, knew that I never, ever, ever would want to be a corporate lawyer. I knew probably since the first day of law school that I was a criminal lawyer. I actually don't really see myself as an attorney. I'm a criminal defense attorney. That's what I am. And it very much aligns with my values because I really value integrity and honesty and empathy and compassion. And I've been through a lot in my life, and I think it makes me very good at what I do, because I can really communicate with a broad range of people and understand kind of what they're going through. The issue that I have with the work is I started my own practice my first day as a lawyer because of when I graduated after the crash and everything. There were really no jobs. And I didn't, the problem with being a criminal defense attorney is there's very few, ways you can, do that. And most people it's, legal aid or something or in private practice. And I've been lucky enough to have been practicing almost 11 years now on my own. I've never been an employee as a lawyer, so I have complete control over my life all around, which I'm super, super, super fortunate about. The problem is I I'm tired of struggling with the business side of things. It's a very, very difficult business. It's a very difficult business to grow. Most lawyers I know have done it 25 years and they feel the same. And it's, I find that the answers that people give me towards growing the business are things that aren't in line with my values. For instance, social media. I mean, we don't have to get into discussion. Some people like it, some people don't. I absolutely abhor it, and it is not who I am. And I'm not going to do that to, try and somehow break through with the business. I've sat in on many, many, many client meetings, all with men. All of my colleagues are men, pretty much, as a new lawyer. And I think a lot of them did a lot of very unethical things to get clients. I think that they make promises that they shouldn't make. I think they act in a lot of boastful ways and things like that, that I would never do. I always told myself that I would be the lawyer that I want to hire. And I pride myself on that. And I'm very proud of that. But, and I'm not willing to change that. Obviously, I'm never going to compromise my ethics, let alone to make more money. But that's kind of the issue that I have. And it's been making me start thinking about, well, maybe I should just leave entirely. I don't think money is at all the most important thing at all. But I do think that when you're doing something for 10 or 11 years and you happen to be very good at it, it shouldn't be such a worry anymore. That just doesn't seem kind of right to me. So I don't know, I kind of ranted there. Maybe that's the answer to what I rant about.
Well, I hear that you're really committed to being ethical and to your own integrity, first of all, as values. Is that accurate?
Yes, those are very much so, yeah.
And that the people around you don't necessarily share those values.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm a solo. I don't know what I'm just saying as a new lawyer, I can tell, and I can also just tell by the reaction of clients, like, when you give somebody a quote for a fee, there's a lot of lawyers that will tell you something costs something and they'll just get that money from you. And then they'll get off the case at the second appearance. They'll tell the judge you haven't finished paying. People do that all the time. It's not like I see it every day, but it's obvious we know that this is something that happens all the time. That's an example of a behavior that I would never engage in, so I would never do something like that. And it just, it's, I mean, I hate to say it, that's so horrible but I almost think, a lot of these people are bending the rules to make the business end, better for them. And I'm not willing to do that. And, nor should I, but, I don't know how to get it resolved then. So I've been exploring other options altogether that have nothing to do with the law.
And if you could find a solution to this problem, you would still stay in the law.
I would absolutely seriously consider it because I love so many things about the work. I love building relationships with clients. I'm very good at it. And I love trying cases. I mean, I don't know if there's any trial lawyers on here, but I know somebody before the scientist had a really interesting story, was saying, she would coach people to ask questions, but wouldn't do it herself. I mean, to me, there is nothing better than that, than giving a summation and sitting down and knowing I just saved somebody's life with my ability to construct a sentence. I mean, there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than that. So I would love to keep doing that, but I don't want to keep doing that and looking at the calendar that it's 2 weeks for the bills and this, and that just, it kind of ruins it. It's really kind of insulting,
Well, there are a lot of lawyers who have the same issue that you do, that like they're really good at what they do, but they don't want to pay attention to the business. And I'll just tell you some things that some people have tried, and you might have tried these already. But one is to actually find someone who's really good at it, at like the marketing piece, and either hire them or associate with them. Yeah, there people. I've seen groups of lawyers get together with one person who's good at the rainmaking piece, but doesn't want to practice law. And I run into a lot of people who just want to make rain and don't want to actually go to court. So I think that those people are out there. And so if you had somebody like that who just like fed you cases, then you could just do the part you love. And then you know, like some people have paralegals that are extraordinary at that. It's really easier if somebody else says how good you are than if you do. And so, you know, finding someone who is going to do that. There are, you know, things that you could do. You said you don't like social media, you know, like, you know, if you had a website where you were interviewed about your approach, then you'd have that out there. That interview process is, you know, it's almost as good as somebody else recommending you. It's, you know, so it's like, rather than you just talking to a camera. I think I had another one. You know,
Kim, if I could jump in, could I add something while you think?
sure.
So one of the things that I found really helpful for those of us who are struggling with marketing and trying to find a balance of maintaining our values while reaching and finding the clients that align with those values is there are a lot of marketing experts out there that are purpose-driven organizations or are driven by their values, and shifting your focus from marketing or networking in a way that's an exploitative feeling in the background to something about alignment and trying to align your services and your value with the clients who need you, and helping to find the clients and give them the support can really start to shift. So if you do some searching for values-based marketing support, that may be something that can help as well.
Thank you both very much. I just have one follow-up question. In terms of the rainmakers, people have said that to me several times about finding somebody like that. Do you have any suggestions on how that would happen? How you know, two lawyers could kind of, because everyone I know has been practicing forever, that they have what they have and that's it. You know, it's not like I'm meeting new people every day. Do you have any suggestions on that?
My suggestion was, I was thinking about the one that's Azalea. By the way, I have a great aunt whose name was Azalee and spelled it the same way. So if I say Azalee instead of Azalea, that's why. You know, that there are retired people out there who maybe you know, would love that. You know, what I've found is that when I really want something and get really clear about what it is, then I find it. It's the lack of clarity that makes it difficult to find. So, you know, maybe you've got, maybe there's a paralegal with a marketing background. I think we had somebody here who's a lawyer with a marketing background already, you know, that would really believe in you. That would, you know, maybe there's somebody working for somebody who's not very ethical, who's really good at bringing in clients that that would rather work for you. And if you had somebody doing that part, then you could just keep doing the part you do and pay them because you'd make more money, because you'd actually be working more and not worried about where you're going to pay the, you know, the rent next month.
Thank you.
It's actually counterintuitive to me. Like when I've hired people, I've made more money. Like you know, I spent a lot of time as a solo, and every time I hired somebody, I made more money. It made no sense to me, but it was true.
Kim, I want to flag, we have just over 30 minutes left in today's session, and we have two people with hands raised and a comment I'd like to flag in the chat here. So if I could read you this question, and then you decide after that if you want to take the other speakers or whether you'd like to move on to the rest of the presentation.
I'll take the questions that we have now, and then I need to do the next part.
Okay. All right. So here's the first comment that I wanted to flag. Hang on, let me scroll up here. Oh, I lost it. Okay. What advice would you give to someone starting out to find a practice area that will make you happy? I'm class of 2018 and I do insurance defense. Long story short, I hate it. I hate it because neither the clients nor the plaintiffs really care about the cases and stuff just drags on without getting resolved and no one cares. My values are community, service, and achievement.
I don't know that it's really about the area of practice, it's who you practice with. Because I know people who do, you know, various kinds of litigation that really care and that do marvelous work with their clients because they care. But you know, it's a cross interviewing process when you're looking for a job. You're not just being interviewed, you're interviewing them. You know, figure out, are they the kind of people you want to spend your time with? You spend, you know, being lawyers 12 hours a day with these people. You know, are they the kind of people who actually do care? And so knowing your values helps you do that kind of interviewing. I hope that answers the question. And then the other piece is, while you're there, you can care, and you can resist the people who don't care.
Okay, thank you, Kim. So next up we have time. And speaking of time, since we have two people who want to share, about how many minutes do you want to give to each?
It'll be fine.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Time. I didn't hear how much time I had, so I'll talk very quickly. I'm the one I graduated law school, worked for a big fancy Wall Street firm, was miserable after a month of practicing law. I quit and opened up a booth at a flea market. And I sat there from Fridays to Sundays giving out free consultations. Long story short, 40 years hence, I have one of the best matrimonial firms in New York. And we practice law the way that I want to, helping the people that I want to help. We talk about how
That sounds very courageous. I just want to say, like,
it was very foolish. I was lucky. And at that point, when I started, I handled rent law. That meant anything that paid the rent, I handled. Oh, yeah. Riparian water rights, my specialty. Rule against perpetuities. I had a case like that last week. And that's how I did it, which is, I've developed my firm talking about the websites. When I designed my site, I didn't want it to look like any other site. So I did not use any of the marketing companies. I went to somebody who is a movie maker, a documentary maker. And my website has a totally different feel than anybody else. And that, for me, that cuts two ways. Some people I know are not going to want to come to me because my website says who I am. You get a sense of who I am. So it works as a two-way screening process. When they come to me for consultations, I'd say about 95% of the people who come in for consults retain me because they've already have a sense of who I am from my website. So I think it should be very individualized, and you have to develop your own voice, and that should permeate all your different areas of marketing. And then you said, how do you establish relationships? How do you get to people? Again, this was in 1990. I had a very big family law case. Doesn't matter what it was. We were front page for like 2 weeks running, but I knew nothing about family law. I got lucky and we won the case and things went great, but I still knew nothing. So what I figured, I got to learn something. So I wrote to the top 10 matrimonial lawyers in New York and said, can I have just 10 minutes of your time so I could ask you some questions? And all 10 of them said no, they would not meet me for 10 minutes. So what I did is I made friends with their secretaries. And I said, oh, Mr. Smith, I'd like to see him. When does he have a break in his calendar? And she said he has a break next Tuesday between 1 and 2. I said, what's his favorite restaurant? And they'll say like Smith and Walensky. Call him up, Mr. Smith, I'd like to meet you. Sorry, I know I told you I can't meet you, but no, I spoke to your secretary, Marie, and she said you have a break in your calendar next Tuesday from 1 to 2, and I made a reservation for us for lunch at Smith and Walensky. All 10 people who would not give me 10 minutes of their time met me for lunch for an hour and a half. And that's how I developed. These people then became my mentors. A number of them offered me jobs. And that's how I really got my experience, just because I gave somebody a free pastrami sandwich. And that's basically how I started my practice.
So you made me think about our previous conversation with Lily. One of the things that I think would be an interesting perspective for somebody doing criminal law is to reach out to family lawyers and people who don't do criminal law, and let them know that that you're available to take their criminal cases, but you're not going to steal them as clients for other things. And so that might be another way. But like the other thing I'll notice, the relationship with the staff, secretaries, paralegals, and everything, all of the office people is, first of all, the relationship you have with your own is really important, and the relationship you have with others is very important. I got more done by knowing that the clerk liked peppermint than I ever got done doing anything else. I used to have the clerks of court would come and say, if you get a job, I've got dibs. If you have an opening, I've got dibs. And so, those are the people who actually make things work. So thank you for your story. One more.
Go ahead, Oak Tree.
Hey, I had a question, and now my son is running around behind me, and I think I probably can't ask my question right now, because he's got to go take a nap. But why don't I say this? So I have my own practice. I've had my own practice for about 2 years. Before that, I was working with some friends for about 6, and once upon a time, I spent some time in a big firm. But things are actually quite good right now. And my practice is a mix of commercial and IP work, and I work with creatives and artists and folks in tech, and basically people like me, like people who are like me, in the sense of like, the clients that I get to work with now are the clients that I would sort of, want to have a drink with or want to hang out with, and feel more akin to, and that works great for me, as does, frankly, I don't even work that much these days. I'm parenting a toddler partly, and yet somehow I'm making more money this year than I did even when I was in big law. But what I wanted to say actually to Lily really quick is 2 things. One, before I launched my practice, I realized that like I had this sense of like, there are a million people that are going to tell you all the things you have to do to make your business work. And then you're going to end up being the puppet of your business, and you're going to like never sleep doing all the things that everyone tells you to do. And I realized that basically the business had to work for my life as opposed to me working for the business. And one of the pieces for that was making sure that I'm not only running like a bulk law practice where fees are sort of capped at a certain amount based on the type of client or the type of law that I'm doing. And I'm just like my goal is not to grind. My goal is to have a smaller number of clients that the mix of which can pay me sort of what I need for my life. And if I get more, great, but it's just sort of like, how do I have this mix of clients? And frankly, I would say most of my clients pay me maybe 20% of my overall revenues, and then 20% or 10% of my clients will pay the large share of my revenues. Often that has to do with finding high paying hourly litigation. I'm lucky that in New York I can charge half the rate of a big firm and still be doing very, very well because it's just me. But the one thing I'd say to Lily is if there's a way that you can still serve a lot of potentially low fee paying clients, but also mix in some high fee paying clients on a selective basis, then that's another way to do it, as opposed to finding someone who's a rainmaker. You just operate on a sliding scale and find people to fill out like larger hourly rates.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Kim knows I'm a big proponent of sliding scale fee systems. And if anybody's interested in learning how to do that, go ahead and send me a message. I'll put my email again in the chat.
I especially like the people like you, like you're working with people like you. I think that that's another way of saying that you have shared values. And so you're finding the people you want to have a drink with also make great clients. That may not be true of criminal law, but and maybe it is, but that idea that the people you want to hang out with make great clients is a good one. So I have a slide up that gives you the work that I've done over the years. This is sort of like a moving target, because the more I do this work, the more I refine it. But it's my vision statement for the legal profession, and my mission, vision, values, purpose, and sort of my operating principle. And so this is how I make my decisions. If I'm looking at a project, I look to see, does this move my vision forward? Does this forward my values? Is this aligned with who I am? And it helps me sort of have a compass. It's like so many things come to us that ask for our time, and if it doesn't fit one of these criteria, then I just say no. So we've had a very short conversation about values in terms of the big picture. There are lots of exercises online. You can hire somebody to coach you through this. There are lots and lots of ways to get clear about your vision, mission, values. And then the real work begins, which is aligning your life with them, because that's where you're going to find the most satisfaction. And if you find something you think, oh, well, I like that better than this value, then chances are you've not articulated your values well enough. And so, if it's like, well, I don't want to do this thing that is according to my values, I want to do this other things, then look to see, what have I missed, and then continue that refinement process. So Jacqueline, we're going to be able to share this PowerPoint, right? So that people.
We don't have an email list. I think the New York City Bar has separately, but we can see if the New York City Bar can send it out. If not, if you just send me an email, any of the participants, to legallyunconventional@gmail.com, I put in the chat as well, I can send it to you if you'd like a copy.
Oh, thank you. So one of the things that I'm the expert on, I can't ever do a presentation without mentioning it is the Integrative Law Movement. And the Integrative Law Movement takes all of the things we've been talking about, all of the values approaches, all of the creativity, compassion, and making a difference, and there are all of these different models that are part of the movement that actually are more congruent than our typical legal system. So, for example, those of you who do contracts, do you know that the worldwide trend now is to give up words and use comics? So if you don't know that, and you're interested in that, the creative approach that's more accessible and has a whole bunch of benefits is the comic book contracts. So look up either comic contracts or creative contracts or reinventing contracts, and you'll find that. The idea that lawyers are counselors, holistic law, sharing law, like how can the legal system actually promote the sharing economy? How do we bring our heart to law? How do we prevent conflict? How do we create contracts that are values based, that actually give people the opportunity to custom make a contract that has all of the values and like all of the real stuff of the relationship written into the contract, and a way to resolve conflict that isn't about fighting in court. All of these are pieces of the movement. I've written books about them. There are lots of websites now about them, And, you know, if you feel like you're kind of stuck in a place that you don't fit, you can create your own, or you can adopt one of these approaches. So some of you raised the issue about like the world, like how do I find a job in a pandemic? You know, what do I do? How do I make decisions? Like, you know, there's so much that needs to be fixed. You know, they in business, they talk about it being the VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that, you know, making decisions is really challenging. You know, you all know that a year ago, we wouldn't have predicted that COVID-19 you know, would have had the kind of impact that it's had. You know, the racism, income inequality, climate change, these are what systems change people talk about in terms of being wicked problems, because they're all connected to each other. Like, you know, climate change has this, a piece that's about racism and about immigration. And COVID-19 is related to that. You know, they're connected to each other. They're problems that no one person can solve, no one country can solve, and it, you know, it's overwhelming. So this next section is about sort of my idea, and it's not just my idea. I share it with a lot of other people about what's going on with that and how you might focus on making a difference in these times. So the systems are collapsing. There's actually a lot of work in the systems change movement with markers. Like, you know, like there's certain things that let you know that a society is collapsing. People have studied societies that have collapsed, you know, for thousands of years, and why they collapsed. And all the markers are here. They're you know, things are falling apart, and I think we feel it, and you know, we want to deny it, and you know, we don't want it to be so, and it's easier just to keep doing our normal, but all around us it's collapsing. So in the systems change world, this is from the Berkana two loops model, and the video that explains it is there. It's like we're in a dominant system that's declining. So all systems have this cycle of, you know, they're building, they become the dominant system, and then they start declining. But one of the things that happens is that as it starts declining, innovators and pioneers sort of start falling out. I see it like rain. Like here's the old system, and they just start kind of raining out. And so these are the people who say, this doesn't work. I'm going to go create something better than this. And a lot of the people in the integrative law movement have done that. You know, they've created things like restorative justice and collaborative law and therapeutic jurisprudence and conscious contracts and comic contracts and all of that. And so these innovators, they start falling out of the old system. And at first they're just kind of, you know, individuals out there. They're just the weird lawyer in town. And then they start getting connected. And as they connect with each other, and then their networks connect with each other, then a new system begins to emerge. So, you know, but I'm one of those connectors that I go out and I seek out the pioneers and the innovators, and I introduce them to each other. And then when they're introduced to each other, they can start having conversations about, you know, this worked for me and this didn't work for me, and, you know, this is how I'm living according to my values. How do you live according to yours? And, you know, putting their ideas together and creating the new system. So as that new system starts to build, there's several roles that people have in that system. So one of the roles that I like to talk about is the role of the hospice workers. Whoops. And hospice workers are people who are in the declining system. And they are there specifically to take care of people. You know, the story about somebody walking on the beach and throwing in the starfish, and you know there's thousands of starfish, and you know it's like I'm gonna throw one back in. I'm gonna throw one back in, and somebody says, well, you know, you're not making a difference, and the person says, but it made a difference to that one. So the hospice workers are the people who are saying this system is falling apart. Lots of people are getting hurt. Like when systems decline, lots of people are getting hurt, and so they're there, like, you know, just, you know, taking care of those people. There are people who are in the dominant system who are stewards, who are actually just holding that system together. There are people who are building bridges between the old and the new, and sometimes there are people in the system who are like siphoning off resources. So like maybe you're somebody who is able to make grants, and you see that this system is declining and you want to support the new system, and so you're doing that, and the idea is to get to a new normal. Now my idea is that this dominant system has to go, that it can't be reformed. The systemic racism, the systemic sexism, the adversarial, the unworkability of the adversarial system in certain matters are just built in, and there's no removing them. It's part of their DNA now. So this is a better diagram that I didn't draw, that you can see the different roles. I like the idea of the old system being compost for the new and planting seeds. So these are the roles that one can have in this system decline. Now the system may take hundreds of years to decline. It may, you know, like we don't know in this time of change, you know, like COVID made things go much more rapidly on a lot of things. You know, like most people thought that online mediation was at least 20 years away, and now we have it. The old system spent a lot of time being built, and so it could take another 100 years as it crumbles. And so one of the things is we need to be looking at what are the roles that we can take on. We can be defenders or stewards of the dominant system, and there are people who think it's fixable and, you know, it's just a matter of tweaking. People who want to just stabilize it and kind of slow it down. Then the reformers, the hospice workers, the pioneers and innovators who are creating new things, the people who are in the old system, but they're protectors, supporters, and cheerleaders of the new, bridge builders and connectors of the pioneers. So I want to know what you think about this, and if you see a role for yourself, what do you think would be the role? Have any questions?
Well, I have a comment.
Yes.
I can always have comments. I love this diagram and this theory, and I think it's more than a theory. I mean, I like the plan. Now, I have been in the system as one who didn't fit, and I believe in changing the system right from law school up. And my role, now that I am retired from the practice of law, and actually from actively doing science as well, although I'm still writing, where would I see myself now? Because I think it changed upon retirement. I would love to be either a bridge builder or better, a connector of pioneers. And I have been a pioneer and an innovator. So over time, I never really supported the original system, whether it was law or anything else. So I could not defend and steward the dominant system or stabilize it. reform, yes, but then it became even more than that. So I would ask your advice for someone like me, and I may be the only retired person on this panel. Where would you think I fit?
I would believe you. I would believe you if you think bridge builder and connectors are the places that you would want to find yourself. And so then the question is, how can you do that from where you are?
Yeah.
And so I don't know you, you know, I don't know, do you write? Like being a bridge builder could be about writing an article that says, this is the old system and this is the new, and helping people to understand that this transition is going on. What I just did by bringing this, you know, bringing this up was building a bridge from the old to the new. And then the connector, I've been a connector for about 25 years. And what I've done is over the years, I read articles and I think, that's really cool. That person ought to know this other person who's also a pioneer. Or, you know, it's been rather haphazard and has led to thousands of people being connected. So each time I connect one pioneer with another, it's like this exponential impact, because they also are connected to people, and then their networks connect. And so, you know, those are a couple of ideas.
Yeah, I was a connector in science because I crossed fields and managed to make people who never thought of hemoglobin in bacteria as that bacteria even had hemoglobin, to someone who was working on the control of hemoglobin in mammals. So they're opened like a whole 3 or 4 lab nationwide connection. And the connection in law between science outside of intellectual property and law in more traditional formats, including antitrust litigation and securities litigation, was something new and connected other people. So I am a connector, but bridging in terms of writing, yes, I write. So that's one of the projects that I'm doing with my committee. And I think that will be at least one bridge. I like to build like mammoth ones, but you know, I'll start small.
You know, sometimes you don't know it's a mammoth connection until you give it some time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump
yeah, go ahead.
into flag. We've got 4 minutes left, and we've got one last person who'd like to share.
Well, let's get that person in here, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, Sunflower, go ahead.
Yes, I found this presentation to be so great, beyond my wildest expectations. I'm so glad that I'm tuning in. Thank you so much. I seek to be a pioneer and an innovator, and you know, I just have some you know, some fear, right? Because so I'm a Black woman. I can understand why people like me are unhappy with this system. And then when I see the kind of like Trump supporters, which I don't want to be rude to anyone, but I see that they're operating under a belief system that they really hold very strongly, just as I hold mine very strongly. And it's like trying to bridge the gap between the two to show, you know, that this way would be better for all is something that I really struggle with and wonder whether it's actually achievable or if it's even necessary for progress to be made, you know? So that's been really my concern.
So there are a lot of people who've been writing about the different value systems that are in operation right now. And, you know, and you're right, we're living in 2 different worlds as far as values go. There are some people who are excellent bridge builders between those worlds. And I have made my work to be more about the pioneering and innovating, because I haven't found that bridge for myself. frankly. But I think that what we've talked about here today actually gives you a framework for thinking about it that is different than what we've been hearing in the media. So thank you for your comment and your question. And I think that it's time to wrap up. We gotta get the screen share off. I do love all of these flowers. I think we should have everybody always change their names to plants. The creativity, the Dutch tulips, the Venus flytrap. I mean, who would have thought about those before? Thank you all. I really appreciate your participation and your listening. And if you need to reach me, I'm easy to get to, jkimwright@gmail.com. And I answer all my email. It may take me a little while if all of you write me today, but I really appreciate that you came to attend and that you listened and participated. And Jacqueline, thank you to the New York City Bar for having me.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Kim. And I'm really pleased to see that I received a number of messages in the chat asking to participate and connect with others here. So if you would like to do that, we ask you to email me at legallyunconventional.com. And if you do email me and say you want to be part of an ongoing group, I will share your emails with the other people who also respond. So that way we're not just pulling the list of participants in total here from the New York City Bar. You have to just send me a separate email and we can create some kind of email list or community that you all can connect and support each other. And it's been wonderful to see the support in these comments, people giving each other advice. And we don't have a formal ongoing group, but it sounds like you all would like to create one. So we'll just create a way that you can connect with each other. Additionally, the Bar Association is going to be posting this recording, hopefully, and we'll be able to share this PowerPoint if you email me at legallyunconventional.com, or as Kim said, to reach out at jkimwright@gmail.com. And I've put both of those in the chat. Kim, anything else?
I think that's it. I think we just used up all of our time. There's always something else. There are always other conversations to have. and you're doing it with a big group like this. I'm trying to answer things that are, for the whole group, but there may be, individual conversations that could make a bigger difference.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you from the Senior Lawyers Committee at the New York City Bar Association.